Thanks, Jess. Evening, I'm Graham, I'm an addict. Thanks, Michelle, for asking me. I sent me a little text last week, can you do your birthday share? I shared back, we had a little joke, it weren't that funny. And I said, yeah, I'm looking forward to doing my 3 shares. And you all know this, you've all experienced it. It's the one you spend all week planning. It's the one you do on the night, and it's the one you do on the way home with all the things in it that you wish you'd said on the one you'd done in the meeting. And I thought about that, and the truth is this: I am really quite nervous tonight. I think that's a culmination of things. Despite the fact that I've been around quite a long time and I'm still practicing my program every single day, every single part of it, I'm going for a really difficult time. That's the truth of it. And it's really hard to admit that. And so when I get asked to do the chair, the first thing comes to mind is, well, what have I got to offer? Despite all the time that I've been around, and despite the fact that this is my experience only, and that 15 years after surrendering and coming into recovery, I'm still working my program, and I'm still turning up at meetings, and I'm still sponsoring, and I'm still sponsored, and I'm still doing my prayer and meditation. And quite often in the face of my fears, not in the absence of them. So it's really easy for me anyway, and I know this to be true for a lot of people, that we are our own worst enemy, and we'll just go straight down the negative route in any of our thinking. And so I spend all week planning and thinking about what I'm going to say, and all the experience and knowledge and wisdom and everything that I picked up along the way. And there's 2 sides to this coin. There's 2 sides to my character, like there is with everyone. And there's this huge part of me that just wants to be accepted by you, and wants your approval, and wants to be liked, and needs it for me to be okay and for me to feel okay. And we know that's the ego. But it occurred to me today that actually there's something else. There is something else as well. And that is the fact that I'm sitting here, and I come to this meeting every week, and it's my home group, and I'm amongst my peers, my fellow addicts, and my friends, and I care about you, and I love you, and I respect you, and I actually want to do a good job tonight. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that. You know, I just want to do a good job tonight. You know, I want to share my experience, and you know, I want someone to get something out of it. What I have learned over the years is that, despite the fact that for 10 years I was a raving cokehead, my addiction is, I've got this addiction of actually more. It's just more, right? It's, you know, it's this addiction to my attachments of things that make me feel different, that make me feel better about myself. You know, after years of sort of going through life and trying to make my way on pure self-reliance, and you could reword that as drive, ambition, belligerence, you know, pure grit. You know, it was an attitude of like, I'll show you, because it's like when I was growing up as a kid, and you hear so many people come up here and share, and we talk amongst ourselves, and we share our experiences, and we relate to each other, right? And we hear how I didn't fit in, and this and that, right? as I got beyond a certain age in childhood, I realised so desperately that I just didn't want to be me. Everyone else seemed just so cool and so great, and I didn't want to be me. You know, I can vaguely recall, you know, and I've been thinking about it, this transition from this child, and without embarrassment, you know, I'm going to use this term, this child of God, you know, just loved just for being here and being born, right? There was this transition from this child that was just shining just for being a kid to growing up and really struggling to actually feel included in any way. I just felt less than, you know, and I was always frightened of being rejected and abandoned, and I realised also that I was frightened of being engulfed. You know, and all the intimate relationships that I had in my life were always like push me, pull me relationships. Go away, leave me alone, don't leave me. You know, that's what they were like all the time, and it was so painful. It was really, really painful to live like that. And I got through my teens, and I was 18 years old, and I had my Mark 1 Escort out on the road, right? And after another massive tear up with my mum, because I was at war with my mum for 30 years, longer. I was at war with my mum until I came into recovery. I mean, my mum never worked a step in her life, but once I worked mine, our relationship improved immensely. It was incredible, really. But I'm walking down the front path, and my mum's crying, and it's a massive big tear up again, and you know, and I used to get frustrated and angry and violent and all of that. And my mum's going, why are you doing this? Why are you doing this? I've got 2 black bags and my Adidas bag with my clothes in, chucking them in the boot. Why are you doing this? And I turned around and I went, because I can't handle this fucking family shit. And the truth of it is, I just couldn't handle my emotions. I couldn't handle the demands. I couldn't handle the expectations. I couldn't handle the constant state of feeling like I was a disappointment. So I left home and I thought, I'll show the world, I'll be seen, I'll be heard, and I'll make my way. And what I didn't realise is that for the next 25 years, I thought that's what I was doing. And I was grafting, and I had my own business. I built my own business up, and I had start and lorries and factory and all of this stuff. And I thought I was doing it for the right motives. I've since realised that I wasn't. It was still that constant need for approval. I am a good dad. I am a good husband. I am a good son. Right? And I pushed and I pushed and I pushed and I fought for it. Until self-reliance failed me and my business was collapsing, not because of the drugs, it was just life. Poor business decisions, unfortunate circumstances, and everything I worked for was collapsing. And my whole image, ego, everything that fed what I thought you wanted me to be was crumbling. And it just so happened at that point, I was in my late 30s, about 37, something like that, and cocaine was put in my path. And it's a long story, so I'll leave it for another time, but I took that line, right? And I'll tell you what, it was like, I don't know if you're like some of you old enough to remember Popeye with the cans of spinach, and he used to like chug down the spinach like that, da-da-da-da-da, ping, ping, like that. I felt like that. I literally felt like Popeye. And I remember this thought, it still sticks in my head now. I remember the thought that went through my head, the kid is back. I'll show him. That grim determination, you know, like Bill talks about it in the big book. You know, people jumped into their deaths. That disgusted him as he raised the glass, that grim determination to succeed. right? That's where I was. And I really had no clue that, you know, the pain that was going to cause my family and me for the next 10 years. And the powerlessness over it. So I was so desperate to just feel part of my family. You know, my wife and my 3 daughters, and I just couldn't. You know, and the shame that I felt. You know. So, 2nd of February 2010, I've always shared this. I shared this for a long, long time. I always said it like this. God came into my life. And what I mean by this and what I understood, whether I think something different now doesn't matter, but that's what I understood, is that God came into my heart, and I looked at my wife in that moment in the big tear up that we was having, and selfishness and self-centeredness just left me just long enough, just for a second, to actually look at my wife and see her and see the pain in her eyes. And I just looked and I thought, I'm killing you. And I was so desperately frightened of her leaving me, and yet I couldn't stop. She'd promised me that she would leave me again if I started using coke again, and I'd been using for another 2 years, thinking that, you know, I was getting away with it. Obviously I wasn't. And as much as I couldn't bear the thought of her leaving me, I still couldn't stop. And but in this moment, I just thought, I'm killing you. I thought you deserve better than this. And I just collapsed on my knees in front of her like a pitiful, pathetic wretch. And I just said, Kay, I can't stop using. I'm using it every day. I'm so scared. Please don't leave me. And she just said to me, Gray, no more promises. Just take action. Those were her exact words. And it was on the Tuesday. On the Wednesday, the next day, I rang a pal of mine that I used to work with in the photocopier company, and we'd used together, and he'd got into recovery. It's another story. And I rang him up and I said, Dave, I'm bang in trouble, mate. And he went, Gray, you've made my day. You've made my day. And do you know what? Now here's the thing, right? I've thought for so long, all my life, even up until recently, I've battled with it. I've battled with depression, right? And I've battled with the fact that, you know, of my own importance as a human being, right? And reflect on this, right? If God hasn't seen my importance, right? Like, God had a plan for Dave N from Hertford, and he got him clean. And a year later, right, I rung up Dave, and he got me clean. And 12 years later, another colleague of ours was sitting on the banks of Loch Ness, suicidal. He'd gone up there to see his sister and say his goodbyes and kill himself. And as he sat there on the side of Loch Ness, he was going to kill himself in the car. And all of a sudden this thought come into his head, I wonder if Graham's still got the same number. And he rung me up. And we had a long chat. And he came back down to Essex. And I sponsored him. He's coming up for 2.5 years clean and sober, and his family's put back together, and he's got a job and security, and he messages me every now and again and says thanks. And I thought about this, right? It's like if, let's just say, looking at the mathematics, right? Looking at this plan that God's got for us, right? Let's just say that in the first year of getting clean, we perhaps sponsor 5 people, right? And maybe those 5 people go on at different periods of time and sponsor 5 people. And then they sponsor 5 people, 25, 125, and then another 25, right? That's 625. So let's say over 5 years, if I sponsor 5 people, over 5 years we're looking at 3,125 people. Maybe over 10 years, right? And I don't feel that I'm important, that God ain't got a plan for me, and that there isn't something special for me, you know. It's like Lady Julian of Norwich says, first there is the fall, then we recover from the fall, both of the grace of God. It's all God. My addiction was God. It's all there. But it isn't just 3,125 people, is it? Because we've got mums and dads and brothers and sisters, right, and daughters, right, and friends, and employers and employees and work colleagues and communities. It's like it just goes on forever, doesn't it? A small act of kindness has no rational end. It's like we don't know where it's going to end. So how can we sit there and think that we haven't got this great importance and this great responsibility? And I have to remind myself that, especially at times like this, you know, sometimes we take on too much in life, and that's what I've done. I've taken on a great deal, and I thought I've been invincible, and I'm not invincible. And you can't pour from an empty cup. Sometimes you've got to take care of yourself and love yourself. And that is a time for me at the moment. That's what I'm doing, and I'm working on my program, and I'm leaning into God and my prayer and meditation. It's very easy even now, and it annoys me, irritates me, and I go straight into the route of self-assassination, that I can still be resentful at people. And I feel hurt and threatened and injured, you know, and I hang on to it. You ever been to one of those, you know, like when you go to the fair and they've got one of those electric chair things. And you sit in the electric chair and they've got those 2 iron rods or steel rods and that, and you sit there and you hang on to it. And they normally got like some fair worker, probably someone with a right vicious disposition, right, who sort of cranks up the voltage, right, and you're sitting in the chair and all your mates are there and you're hanging on to it and it's starting to tingle in your hands and your forearms, and you're hanging on like that, and he cranks it up a bit more, the bastard. Right, and they're all laughing and that, going, yeah, go on, you can let go, and right, and it's starting to hurt like fuck, right, and you're hanging on tighter and tighter, and pride won't let you let go, and it's hurting like fuck, and all you got to do is let go. All you got to do is let go, and it's going to stop hurting. It's like, that's my fucking resentments. All I've got to do is just let go. But I hang on to them. You know, I didn't understand anything about that stuff, about the resentments and that. I just thought I was angry all the time. I was angry at everyone all the time. You know, so when I got shown how to do the inventory, right, the inventory process, and like going through, you know, and I'm not here to teach anyone. There's people who have been around much longer than me, right? I've got my experience of it. Those first 3 columns are all about you. You, what you've done, and what you've done to me. Right? But what I've learned is I've really learned to look into that 3rd column. Right? Those 7 aspects of self about how you affect me. My self-esteem, security, ambitions, and personal relations. What's my ambition? What do I want here? What do I want you to do or not want you to do? for me to feel okay? What about my security? What do I need you to do or not to do for me to feel safe? My personal relations. What are my deep-rooted ideas and beliefs about how I think you should be treating me? And if only everyone would just do what I want them to do, it'd be all right. Can't they understand what's going on in my head all the time? And that's the struggle. But the thing is, right, we get on, so we flip the page and we get into the next two columns, or three, or however you've done it, right? And we look at first we've got to see the realisation this was our course. We realised that these people were sick like us. I thought, what the fuck does that mean? Right? They're sick like us, right? I used to look at, my mum had about 5 pages, right? I used to think, how's my mum sick? How's my mum sick? And then I sat there and I thought about it and I worked it out. Just like me, these people are prone. This is the word, prone. They're prone to selfishness. They're prone to fear. They're prone to see it from their own perspective. They're prone to anger. Just like me. It's exactly like me. So I look at it and I get into the 5th column and it says, we have been. I've been telling myself, listen, I started going through that column inventory. At the beginning I had a vague idea that I'd been a prick, right? By the time I got to the 4th column, I was absolutely convinced. Right, you are an arsehole. I get in the 5th column and it says, we have been. It's past tense, it doesn't say you are. Driven by 100 forms of fear, we step on the toes of our fellows and they retaliate, seemingly without provocation. I sit and I go, what the fuck have I done?
Time.
I've learned an awful lot going through this programme. I've learned a lot about myself. I've had to undo a lot of stuff. It says some of us try to hold on to our old ideas and the result was nil until we let go absolutely. And again, it comes back to that letting go and letting go, right? And do you know what? Sometimes I have to remember my absolute powerlessness. My step 1 powerlessness is just not over substances, not only over substances. It's over people, places and things. And what I think you're doing to me, hurt, injuring, threatening me. And I have to continue to let go. But sometimes I can't, by force of will, change the way that I think or act. Right? Sometimes I just have to rest in the grace of God and that divine therapy and in the silence and let him do his work. And I've found that in recent years the prayer and meditation has probably given me the greatest growth, and it's given me the greatest uncertainty and the greatest doubt. And I've had, again by the grace of God, I've had the willingness to continue. We're not cured of alcoholism, we must continue. Right, and for good reason. And you know what? And I will finish on this, Jess, thank you. I will finish on this, okay? We quite often hear that we say in recovery, thank you God for those who went before us and 12-stepped us and brought us into recovery. Okay, but what I've learned is this, right? In the 15 years that I've been in recovery, there has always been a kind and loving soul who has gone before me at each stage of my recovery, that I've been able to lean into, and they've shared their wisdom and their love and their encouragement and their forgiveness and non-judgment, right? And I know that that will continue for the next 5, 10 or 20 years, however long that I'm alive. right? There will always be someone who has gone before me who's willing to show me the path when I stray from the path sometimes through fear and uncertainty and doubt, and they gradually and gently help me back onto the path. And here I want to stay. So I'll continue to work my programme and hopefully be around for another few years. So thank you.